I recently received a request to review 2 shows. I'm going to do both in the same video, so first up we have My Life as a Teenage Robot, which originally aired on Nickelodeon in 2003. This is a series that I was vaguely aware of when it was airing, but never actually watched. It was created by Rob Renzetti, who previously worked on 3 Cartoon Network classics, Dexter's Laboratory, The Powerpuff Girls, and Samurai Jack. If you asked me to describe the series in a nutshell, I'd say imagine Kim Possible crossed with Inspector Gadget. Or if you want a visual representation, it's the Powerpuff Girls crossed with Dexter's Laboratory. Makes a lot of sense, right? Our protagonist is XJ9, or Jenny as she prefers to be known. Jenny is a 6'6", 600-pound blue teenage robot whose job is to save the world from various natural disasters, aliens, and strange villains. She's armed with an arsenal of gadgets, some of which serve no purpose in battle, but anyway, that's not important because actually her lifelong dream is to live like a normal teenage girl. Her 2 best friends are Brad, the boy next door who's a bit of a bore, and his little brother Tuck, who's annoying as fuck. These 2 help her learn the ins and outs of teenage life. For example, screwing, in a high school sense, probably doesn't mean what she thinks it does. We also have Sheldon, a stereotypical nerd type, who's haplessly in love with Jenny, probably because real women are too complicated. He's also a tech whiz and a furry, so really phoning it in on those stereotypes.
I happen to be a nerd.
Oh yeah.
Proud to be a nerd.
Of course.
And this obscenity reduces we nerds to one-dimensional cliches.
Jenny's creator, Noreen Wakeman, is also a typical nerd type, except she's a girl. Sounds extremely sexist, I know, but that's exactly where this series' head is at. They keep trying to draw attention to how progressive they're being, and at times it's super cringy. Boys going on about how girls can't play soccer before being proven wrong in an embarrassingly over-the-top way. Jenny's one-time robot boyfriend Kenny turning out to be an actual dog. There's actually one episode where Jenny's mum makes her a human skin suit so she can go to a humans-only diner, but for some reason it's possessed by a demon which tries to make her more ladylike. And the skin suit keeps telling her that girls aren't supposed to save boys. Like I said, very cringy. On the plus side, some of the jokes and references are quite well placed. In one episode, Jenny wants to get ears installed so she can get them pierced, and she gets Sheldon to install some. And when showing her the selection, he mentions that the Van Gogh ears are half off or something like that. One of Jenny's sister prototypes, XJ7, is a nihilistic mopey Mildred, described on the Wikipedia page as being similar to Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, but I think she's actually based on Marvin from Douglas Adams's A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I've been talking to the ship's computer, and it hates me. I'd make a suggestion, but you wouldn't listen. No one ever does. Give me a hand. Ha ha. Very funny. How am I supposed to drive this pod with one arm, stupid?
When asked what's getting her down, she says,
"Oh, life, the universe, everything."
Life, the universe, everything.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42.
And if that's not a nod, I don't know what is. You should also definitely watch A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, or else forever forfeit your right to be called a nerd.
Star Wars films are brilliant.
There! I happen to think that Return of the Jedi is slightly below par.
What I do like about Jenny's character is that while she is in general nice and polite, she is still a teenager. She's shallow, emotional, self-conscious, and likes to jump on fads and bandwagons. All in all, my takeaway is pretty positive, and while the series does feel like it's treading some pretty familiar ground, it stands up on its own fairly well. Don't go out of your way, but if you like those old Cartoon Network cartoons, which I do, this will probably scratch a few itches for you. It's fun, quirky, and I think it looks pretty good in a very simplistic kind of way. The show did get cancelled due to poor ratings, but that wasn't before releasing 3 seasons and being nominated for various prestigious awards. Okay, moving on from completely unsubtle to subtle enough to get me to take a second look. A Kitty Bobo Show was a cartoon that aired in 2001 created by husband and wife Kevin Eldon and Megan Dunn for Cartoon Network. All that exists of this show is a 7-minute pilot which aired as part of Cartoon Network's Big Pick competition, which auditioned 10 pilots, the winner of which would get a full series debuting in 2002. This show came in second, beaten out by Codename Kids Next Door, which incidentally was a big part of my own childhood, but that's not important right now. A Kitty Bobo show revolves around the titular Kitty Bobo, an anthropomorphic cat who's always trying to appear cool in front of his friends. He's voiced by Dante Basco, and bear in mind this is before he was in Avatar and American Dragon Jake Long, but that actually gives me a pretty good way of describing it. Imagine the show American Dragon without all the magic, friendship, and romance stuff, and most of what you're left with is a cringy show about an awkward adolescent who tries too hard. Maybe that's an unfair analogy, since I really liked American Dragon. I did not like this on my first watch. Keep in mind that all we got was a pilot. Perhaps the world will never know what clever stories the creators had in mind for this show, but what actually did get made? Well, the episode revolves around mobile phones, or cell phones as they are called in some parts of the world. Kitty Bobo is showing off his new cell phone to his friends, and he's an uber douche about it because none of them have cell phones themselves. He's always on it and keeps putting emphasis on the word cell phone every time he talks about it. After 2 of his friends get sick of his shit and ditch him, he takes his friend Maggie to see a horror movie in the cinema. More hijinks ensue involving his cell phone, but they're not all that funny. He also keeps calling his parents, who are dogs for some reason. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, he gets kicked out of the cinema, and later he sees an urban-looking guy using a payphone and gets his friend to call him from another payphone to show off the fact that he has a fucking cell phone. Honestly, I'm surprised he didn't get stabbed pulling this shit, but anyway, later on he's texting while on a bike and he runs into a wall and drops his phone, smashing it to pieces. I'm gonna call bullshit on that, by the way, because everyone knows that those old phones were indestructible. You drop an old Nokia off the Empire State Building, it'll probably bounce. Don't try that, please. Kids, let me put it this way. I would not put one of these phones in a hydraulic press for fear of breaking the press. The episode ends with him telling his friends what happened to his cell phone, but none of them are listening because they've all bought cell phones themselves since seeing his, and now he's all alone and unable to take pictures of his breakfast. For those of you who don't know I'm joking, if you took pictures of your breakfast and posted it online in 2001, you'd probably be locked up for being a loon. So the story as a whole isn't all that interesting, so how the fuck did it manage to bag the number 2 spot? I'm not talking number 2 as in fecal matter, by the way, that would be a shitty Bobo show. No, in fact, I think it's because there's another layer here. And it's so subtle that I completely missed it on my first watch. Remember I said his parents were dogs? It's never mentioned explicitly, but Kitty Bobo is adopted. Apparently the creators are both Korean adoptees, and they wanted to show that a relationship between parent and adopted child could be very similar to, if not the same as, the relationship between parent and biological child. I think this could have been quite powerful, since there is quite a bit of stigma around adoption which hasn't been made better by network television. Usually, if a kid in a film or a sitcom really wants to fuck with their younger sibling, they tell them they're adopted and then they're scarred for life, or so the trope goes. I guess what I'm saying is, I like what this show was trying to do. Unfortunately, the writing was just
slightly below par.
The art style is pretty interesting, but I imagine some will love it and some will hate it. The 2 creators divorced a few years later, and while Callagher did try to rework the series to pitch to Walt Disney Television Animation, it's safe to say that that never came to fruition. It's likely that all we'll ever see of this universe is this pilot, the storyboard for the 2nd episode, and various print media made by the creators. So, we have one series that's well executed but lacks subtlety in its message, and one that's very subtle in its message but has poor execution. Maybe the 3 creators should have combined their efforts. My Life as a Teenage Kitty Bobot Show is a series I would watch for the wacky title alone. Although it would probably either end up being timeless or a complete fucking dumpster fire.